Now for all of you guys that have your fretting kits, obviously you're going to need to change the sandpaper from time to time. So I wanted to point out that the tan side of the leather is up. And the reason for that is it allows you to peel off the sandpaper multiple times without actually lifting the leather from the wood, is what is going to hold the sandpaper to the leather. Now I have this marble cutting board that I got from a kitchen countertop manufacturer, and it makes for a great backup when you're slicing things. As you can see, I got a bunch of blocks here. I'm changing the adhesive on all of these blocks so that I don't have to stop midstream. You gotta be careful there, hold that leather down. Once you get started, you can just peel that back. When you open your fretting kits, you're going to find 6 fretting guards that you just cut those for Tele, Strat, Dreadnought, SG 335. There are 6 aluminum straight edges, and here you'll find your 5 sanding blocks with the slip of leather. Now I load them up. The longer blocks I put 120 on. The shorter blocks, the scrub blocks, I have 80. But of course, the sandpaper is interchangeable. This is the scrub block that you're going to use for bringing those fret crowns back to center. That's your leveling file. And that, in a nutshell, is the fretting kit. That's what I've been using all along. It's what I'm going to be using today. See this defect? The abrasive had kind of run off on that edge. So this is a defective roll. I got a roll about this big in diameter. Actually, I got 4 rolls about this big in diameter, 4 different grits for 75 bucks. This is 20 years ago. Still using it. So the lesson in that is keep your eyes open when you go to these wood shows. At most of these wood shows, you'll find some guy tucked away in a back corner with an auditorium table and a bunch of reject sandpaper. So for our purposes, when you're making it up as you go like this, it proves to be a very valuable resource. So when you open your kits, you'll find that these short blocks already have the 80 grit on there, but I just wanted to show you the installation process so that when it comes time to change, you know how to go about doing that. So this is the next size up, and I'm going to step it down to 120, and that's used to obviously take out the scratch marks of the 80 grit. So the 80 grit really is just used to kind of level any inconsistencies along the lay of the neck. If you've been watching my videos, you see they're more common than they should be. So same deal with this 120 paper. I got it from the same guy at the same show. I load those ones up at 120. These last two blocks I'm going to be stepping it down to 180. Give us our final finish. We'll be ready to put frets in for both of these jobs. This will finish blending the compound radius end to end, and we'll be ready to put frets in when we're done with this 180 grit. Two longest blocks with the 180. There's Okay, now we're ready to get to work. So what I have here is a surface ground, dead flat piece of solid aluminum, 1 inch wide. This radius here is just under 9 inches, 8 3/4. Just to make a point. I have a piece of sandpaper on there and I put it up to that radius. The contact surface is minuscule. So the width of that contact surface, when I put that 1 inch wide piece of aluminum that's milled dead flat, it's about 1/8 of an inch. This is how much contact surface we have with that leather flexing, and this is why I use these blocks. It is about 5/8 of an inch, and that's why this method works so quickly and so flawlessly. Think about this for a second. If you've got that piece of metal, a metal bar with sandpaper attached to it, and you're going over the fret crowns, that's how much contact surface you've got. And that's why I've never used that method, and I never will. You'll see when you get that fine single cut mill file mounted on the handle in your fretting kit, that you move obliquely over the crown, like I've pointed out so many times before in other videos. You move obliquely over the crown along the trajectory of the string path, and you get it dead straight every time. There are a couple of precautionary notes on these two guitars that we're doing, the refret and compound radius. You do want to check to make sure that you have enough meat in the center of the fingerboard to be able to drop that down. Now in this case we've got pearl dots, no issue, they're plenty thick. But in the case of the other guitar, we need to pay attention as I'm leveling out that top end. With this guitar, no issue. Thickness of the dots and the thickness of the center of the board. Now I've marked that out with chalk on both guitars. You don't want to touch that outside edge until all the center has been lowered, and then you gradually breeze to that outside edge. You've heard me say this in other videos, so that when you're done, this outside edge should actually be sharp to the touch. So I've put those chalk lines on the outside edge for tutorial purposes, for your benefit. Normally I wouldn't even bother doing this. I do mark this portion of the fingerboard with chalk and keep track of it as I work it down. So the center of the fingerboard, the radius is going to be highest here and lowest at the top end. So we'll take successively less material off as we back up towards the first fret. Now with Ivan's guitar, basically the same thing. I have once again scribed those outside lines to let you know that you want to keep within those lines until 90% of the job is done. Most of the material, of course, is coming off here. This is the flattest part of the radius, and you'll gradually taper off the amount of material that you take as you make your way towards the first fret. Now you can see in this case we needed to pull out that neck position pickup, otherwise we'd be bumping into it as we work. Now I saw that the ring was cracked for that pickup, and obviously the customer was aware of that because he's got a fresh ring in the case, and we'll put that on when the time comes. So I've got that in a Ziploc bag, and both pickups are taped off, so as we work there's no chance of any debris getting into the pickup, either of the pickups. And we're now ready to use those fresh blocks. This inlay here, typically it goes down about 40 thou, but there's no way to really know how thick this is until we start working. So we'll just have to see how much depth we have in these upper inlays as we bring the center portion down to create our compound radius. I thought I should point out, Keith has a Babbitt's bridge on his Strat. We'll discuss the pickups when we get on the home stretch. He also has the step down locking machine heads with the thumb wheel screw in the back. There are three different heights. The E and A are highest, the D and G are the middle height, and then the top two, B and high E, are the lowest. Now the idea was to eliminate the string tree. There is a string tree on there already, so if we take it out we're just going to end up with a hole there, so we'll probably leave it on. And we will be doing a compensated nut. You can see on Ivan's guitar there's plenty of thickness in that fingerboard. That's not the issue. My concern is more the inlay, but I think we're going to be okay. We'll see as we move along. Now the other word of caution here, this is a one-piece neck through. These frets were glued in, so I did have to rake out each fret slot to clear out the adhesive or super glue that was used. And word of caution here is you need to be very careful. That's why we've got these fret guards. You see how close we are to the body. And this saw, this is a Japanese saw, so it cuts on the pull stroke. And this is a 22 thou kerf, which is beautiful. Cleans it out and gives us the perfect width of kerf to receive the new frets. When I cut out this side, I started from this side and pulled towards center. Now, this has already been done, so I'm just really illustrating for your benefit so you understand what I went through to get to this stage. Covering our tracks. In part 3 of this series, we will create the compound radius and prepare the fingerboard to receive the new frets. This is the typical single action truss rod that you find in Strats, as a Japanese Squire. I did make sure that we had a bit of load on that before we true it up end to end. Now with Ivan's guitar, this is a different animal. Now that nut was just loose like that. This is a two-way truss rod. And I have checked the lay of the neck. So with a two-way truss rod, right now we're in the neutral zone. This is a stacked two-way truss rod. So there's two rods fixed at one end, and then you can turn it counterclockwise or clockwise. When you turn it counterclockwise, you exert the same type of tension that you do with the strings. But this doesn't need any counterclockwise tension. I'm just doing it for your benefit to demonstrate how this works. I did end up putting a bit of load, so once you go through that neutral zone, now I'm tightening it, and of course it acts just like a regular truss rod. And I've got just a bit of load on that because there is some discrepancy along the lay of the neck. We need to take that top end down anyway. So we'll cover these details on both these guitars in part 3. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.